Hi, I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Indianapolis, Indiana.
And I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Hey guys, we've loved answering all of your questions so far. If you'd like to hear your question on the podcast, please send them to us on Instagram at Wheel Talk Podcast or by email to wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks. All right, we're live here with Ryan and Curt joining us today. Becca decided to skip out on us. She doesn't care enough about what we're going to talk about today, so we can give Becca shit later.
But, I understand. It's not everyone loves Instagram.
Yeah, that's true. So Curt Hammerly's back on the episode. If you did not listen to his past episode, he's been on Wheel Talk before. Try to remember the episode number. I want to say 50 something. Normally I just pull these out of my ass and just can quote it, but
man, it was like 2 years ago. Feels like a lifetime.
Yeah, I know. So we chatted about a lot of social media stuff. I mean, that's probably where you've known Curt from, if you know who that is. But do you want to just briefly, for anybody that doesn't know, by the way, Curt Hammerly, episode 50. So shop talk with Curt Hammerly. So
I'm Curt Hammerly. I run a studio outside of Denver, Colorado called Hammerly Ceramics. At this point, man, it's changed so much since 2 years ago. I have about 2,000 square feet total of my studio. I have 5 part-time employees, and I make mostly mugs and planters and sell them using my audience on Instagram.
Love it. Yeah, I was just looking at when that released, August 8th of 2020. Can't believe it's been that long.
Like a year and a half, yeah. Jeez.
Wow.
Wild.
So many episodes. Okay, what you mentioned the planters and the mugs. Like, do you know what percentage of your, like, let's just say in the last couple months, or well, it was kind of a weird couple months. You probably haven't had a bunch of restocks like normal, but what's a general split?
I would say
item wise versus income wise, maybe.
I would say mugs make up about 80% of the revenue.
Okay.
And then from there it breaks down to planters are second, bowls are third. And then after that we did Christmas ornaments for the holidays, which we had never done before, which was really fun. And then bubblers and little Levi the Space Guy.
Those are so fun. Those are so cool.
I'm so happy with how they've turned out. I have a lot of ideas I still have yet to explore with them. But man, the collaborations. I just did one with Tony Young, and the things that people do in collaborations are just so exciting to see what people do with your design.
Yeah, those are neat because it's very limited. With a mug, it's okay, you got to keep the inside smooth, so you can't really touch any of that, but you can do stuff on the outside. So it's what can you come up with?
Non-functional work it's a whole nother level of do whatever the hell you want. It's pretty fun, and I hope that as my career keeps going, I can do more of it. Even though I do like making mugs, they're fun.
Do those come about from other people initiating, or do you kind of reach out to people that have a certain aesthetic that you enjoy and like?
So a lot of times, I mean, I hope in the future to do more in-depth collaborations where it's a lot of my collaborations so far have been me sending people molds, and it's kind of a one-way thing. Like they're working with their skills and their techniques and their aesthetic inside the bounds of whatever design I send them. So that's a lot of people reach out, especially on Instagram. I get a lot of requests for people to do collaborations. And I have to say no to a lot of them because I just can't overload myself. But a lot of the ones that I say yes to are people that have ideas or people that know how to slip cast already. There's a lot of people that are like, send me a mold and I'll figure out how to put clay in it. And I'm like, it might be a little much. But people that already know how to slip cast, like Tony and then Kenny Singh and I are going to launch a big collaboration at some point where I don't think either of us are in a hurry, but
yeah, those tend to fall down on the list. So
yeah. So I sent Kenny molds over a year and a half ago. He sent me some bisqueware. He has one of the Levi molds that he's been soda firing lately, and he's been doing some crazy stuff with that. So we will have an extensive collaboration, Kenny and I, but there's no date because both of us are kind of like, this is for fun, so let's see what we can do.
Yeah, that tends to happen. I have one collab that I got about a year ago from somebody that slipcasts, and I've been working on them. I just got the majority of them finished in the last like week and a half, and I'm like, now I'm nervous, and I'm like, is all the buzz like nobody even knows about them except for like me and that person. So I'm like, if I announce this, is it really gonna get that bang that I hope it does, or is it gonna like fall silent? You know?
That's a really great point. And honestly, I was worried about that with Tony and I's collab because he made about 40 pieces, but he made them over the course of a long period of time. And I mean, he had my molds and my bisqueware for I think over a year. He'd probably laugh at me when he listens to this, but it might have been a shorter time. Last year was a blur with a baby.
Right.
But
so you kind of forget, like, oh, I sent that off. Like, when was that?
Yeah.
Oh,
and then he was
has
posting along the way, and I think I might have frustrated him. Hopefully I didn't, but I was like, I'm not going to post because I want that hype. I want that, like, you see it and it's available in a timely manner. So the whole time he was making them, I kind of held back. And then when he sent them to me, I even held them for a couple weeks because I had so much other stuff going on. And then all of a sudden, like filming, unwrapping the boxes, filming the pictures, filming the details, just went crazy with it. And it was great. We sold out that collaboration in probably 3 or 4 minutes. It was wild.
Wow. 40 pieces.
Yeah.
And they're all decorative. They're not functional.
Oh,
so
man.
It's like you get the gamut.
A couple mugs.
Oh, there was mugs.
Man, he
Levi
went
Space Guy mug?
Crazy. No, I sent him a couple mugs bisqued, and then he applied his process to that. Oh man, the number of people that ask for Levi the Space Guy mugs though is absurd. Like, I just can't do it. It's just not functional enough, and that's kind of my big thing is.
Yeah.
I want to make the mug that everybody reaches for because it's comfortable, it works well, and it's beautiful. And I think if I just threw a handle on some Levi's, it would be disappointing.
it wouldn't like fit together, right? It's gonna.
Yeah, it would drive my brain crazy.
I mean, maybe like a jar or something, but not like a mug. It's kind of.
I get a lot of requests for piggy banks and planters. They want it like a little chia pet, like cast it out of terracotta and like paint an afro of chia seeds on him, which I'm kind of into. I'm gonna do some translucent ones soon, and Greg does circuit board stuff and electronic stuff. So I want to put some RGB LEDs with little remotes inside of Levi's in translucent porcelain and make some little like desk items that people can change the colors on and stuff. But we'll see.
Okay, sweet. Lots of the collabs in Instagram is like, it's interesting that you just talk about it. And it's cool that you also have that feeling of like, I don't know how this is going to go.
And that's one of the reasons that I say no to a lot of the collabs, is because they give me a lot of anxiety. I would hate to send someone some molds, have them put in a ton of work, and then have those pieces not sell. That would make me feel really, really bad, because in a lot of these cases, like, my work is upfront. My work is designing the mold, making the mold, and then sending it to them. But man, Tony put so much time into them, and if they wouldn't have sold, I would have felt. So needless to say, it gives me a level of anxiety that I just can't do collabs all the time.
Right. And I'm guessing you are the one selling them because you have a nice flow of the photography, the listing, the audience,
it does seem
all that.
It does seem easier that way.
Standardized parts of your process,
especially because like with Tony, he made all the pieces, so it just made sense that I would take on that other side of it, and then having it on my website. In most of these cases, I have the bigger account, so it's just easier for the followers to navigate a website that they're familiar with.
Right.
And I don't mean that in any kind of, I don't know. I always feel weird talking about.
It just makes sense. It's not like I'm superior to you because I have a big audience. It's just like, people know the workflow, and the people that are buying from you are most
Yeah.
likely going to be people that already appreciate your work.
Yep.
And it's cool to have a little piece of Tony
They
Young's
know how the
stuff as
timing
well as,
works.
yeah.
They know how the drop works. They know how the preview works, which is a big thing because on Etsy you can't really do a preview the same way that I can on Shopify. So it just, yeah, like you said, it
Okay.
just makes sense.
Cool. All right, so let's jump into some more IG stuff. So in general, we'll do some like high level stuff first, and then we'll dive in.
Do it.
So
Do it.
how long have you been on Instagram? When did you start your Instagram?
It's just gonna be rough. I'm really bad with dates. It's been
That's all right.
about 6 years
6
since
years.
I really
Okay.
started posting. I was a creeper way before then, but 6 years is when I started posting.
All right. And then as of, we're kind of at like March 2022. So where does your follower count sit right now?
213,000, something
Holy
like
shit.
that.
I mean, when we
It's a lot.
when we last recorded, it was probably still ridiculously big number.
A year and a half ago, probably like 130. I had a lot of growth at the end of last year. Reels have been pretty good to me.
Yeah, we'll chat about that for sure. So when you were coming into Instagram, and this kind of plays into the marketing photography side, did you already have skills in the marketing photography before you came into there? Or did you really refine them?
Not. I took a photography class about 5 years ago. I was probably a good year into my attempt at growing an Instagram before I realized that I did not have the skills that were necessary, and went out and tried to pursue some of those skills. But I got on and started posting in the beginning because I saw so many people doing it, and I was like, I think I have something at least somewhat interesting and unique to bring to the table.
Yeah. Did you think the process of what you were sharing, like your pieces and the process, was the most interesting part, or was it how you thought you could like show it through a certain lens of the way you look at it to make it interesting? Or were you just like sharing for fun to just...
I was sharing for fun. I have only been doing this professionally for 3 years. And for the first probably year and a half that I was on Instagram, I still didn't sell anything. Like I didn't start my Etsy until I had 20,000 followers. And I started my Etsy because I was making pottery as a hobby. I had a full-time career on the side, and people on Instagram started asking me like, can I buy one of these? Are these for sale? And I was like, well, shit, they're just kind of piling up in my house, so maybe they should be for sale.
Right.
So I didn't go into this with the intention of it becoming my career. And even a year into it at like 20,000 followers, if you would have told me that 6 years from now or 5 years from now, I would be doing this for a living in the capacity that I am now, I would have laughed at you and not ever believed it. None of this was planned.
So when you look back from like 20,000 and back, or as you like put it in your mind, like, okay, this could be something that I'm going to sell the work, like, do you see those early ones as like experiments, and you can actually like sift through like what works, what doesn't work, and then understand
as far as
like
Instagram marketing?
Yeah.
Oh, so the first 6 months I went from 0 followers to 200. And then 6 months later, I posted my first video, and it was like the biggest post I had ever had by a factor of 4. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I remember what it was. It was me pouring plaster over a form, and I did the video for a couple seconds in forward motion, and it was like the white plaster goo going over the form.
Mm-hmm.
And then I reversed it, and it was just this forward and backwards of a video. And It did so well that I was like, what the hell? I was like, oh, maybe videos are where it's at. And 6 months of videos, I got up to 20,000 followers. And
so what was the frequency of that, the videos versus the photos when you were doing it at that point?
I committed myself to 2 to 3 videos per week and 2 to 3 pictures per week. And that was my goal for posting for about 3 or 4 years. What
Okay. So you constantly had to like challenge yourself to figure out like what's interesting that I can capture.
Oh yeah, and that's that's what I tell everyone that's getting started now is I followed all the people doing videos back then and just copied and stole and took what they did and tried to make it a little better, or like looked at what they did and I'm like, wow, that video did really well for them, but I think the angle could be a little bit better that you film it at, or I think it should be sped up a little bit. And in the last 6 years, the amount of practice that I have at making content is countless hours.
Yeah, it's nuts. And you do you kind of have the mindset of like you can actually like analyze posts and like see why they did well and like break it down?
Not always. I think this might sound really weird, but I think that I have a very strong ability to look at my posts and my work kind of from outside of my ego. And like if I look at something that I make and I'm like, this is shit, why would anybody want to watch this? Then I don't post it because that's like, I don't know. Like just because you put time and effort into something doesn't mean that it's good. And I have hundreds of videos over the last couple years, hundreds of videos, hundreds of pictures, hundreds of pieces that I've made that it's like this is shit.
And by good you mean like is going to get a bump on Instagram? Is that what you mean by
I
is
guess
good, or
yeah, I
what do you
guess
mean by good?
good is not the right word. The word that I would use is interesting. Like all Instagram content is you're trying to make something interesting enough that it makes people looking at it pause for even a second. Like that's all it takes. And I know that pisses a lot of people off, but like content, social media marketing is the business of entertaining humans. And there's lots of different ways to entertain humans via showing something they've never seen before. Like back when I started on Instagram, there's a good portion of the world that had never seen pottery thrown on a wheel before. It's one of the reasons why He Who Shall Not Be Named has 1 million followers, is because he was the early adopter and no one had ever seen pottery thrown on a wheel before. And along the way, I've just always tried to think of like, what can I show people that is at least somewhat interesting and that maybe they haven't seen before? Because if you show someone they've never seen before, there's a percentage of them that will send it to a friend and be like, holy shit, look at this. Or they'll save it so they can watch it again later, or hit the like button, subscribe, like follow, all of those things.
Right.
It's just like that's what a lot of people don't understand about Instagram, is that Instagram isn't about art. It's not about good art. It's not about what's good and what's bad. It's about what's interesting, and it's about what can hold human attention.
Right.
And that's
Because
the
they're
whole
all about keeping you on there as long as possible.
Yeah. It's in Instagram's interest to keep humans on their platform as many minutes, hours a day as possible. So as a byproduct, they will help show your work to more people if you help them accomplish their goal.
Right. And they figure out what works, what doesn't work. They're going to bump up the things that work and keep them more attention, and then they're going to deprioritize things that don't.
And this is the thing that always gets people upset, is like I even saw a story yesterday from a friend of mine and put something up about the algorithm being against artists, and like the algorithm is just people. Like if you're not being successful on Instagram, it doesn't mean that you're a bad artist. It means that your content isn't good. And those two things need to be separated in people's minds. And I think that might be something that I'm very good at. Is
and by content, we're not talking about the art you produce. It's the way you market it, the way you show it, the way that you.
Because someone with the most beautiful art in the entire world, if they take a shitty, poor lit picture of it and put it on Instagram, it's just not going to do well. When I go through this kind of Instagram rant, like I did this Instagram rant that you mentioned earlier. And before I did it, I went through like, these are the people that I have been following personally, these potters that I've been personally following for years and years and years. They have more followers than most people. Some of them are really big. And you go to their feeds and you look through it and you're like, this is like, just looking at the feed, you can see like everything is well lit. The videos are entertaining. Like there's a reason that this content is doing well. It's not just a luck of the draw. It's not just a roll of the dice.
And it's not
Like
just because they have a lot of followers already. The followers
exactly.
are kind of a byproduct
Exactly.
of the efforts that
Yeah.
got them to that point.
And especially when you look at someone that's been doing it for years and years and years, and like you try to chalk it up to luck, that argument falls flat because I mean, I always get the question, when did you blow up? When was the big break? And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. I have been posting between 3 and 6 times a week for 6 years, and the number of followers has slowed down and sped up, but it's always been a growth. There's never been like I didn't post a video and get half of my followers. It's just not.
Right.
There are artists that have done that and they made something that is so visually appealing and so interesting that they went mega viral and blew up overnight. But for the vast majority of us, that's not how it works. It's a content grind, and you're consistent. You make consistently good quality content, entertaining content over a long period of time. And then even more than that, you tell a story. So where I'm at right now is at the end of last year, I threw away about 80% of my designs. I just threw the molds in the trash and said, I'm starting over. And it wasn't the best idea for a business because I haven't sold anything this year. I've run payroll for my employees. I've paid rent and I've paid utilities twice now, and I haven't made any money. But the messages that I've been getting in the last couple days as I show this work finally coming out of the kilns, for the last 3 months, I've been showing this process of I'm throwing these designs out and I'm starting over. And I showed the 3D models of the new work that I had in mind. I showed 3D printed prototypes. I showed the mold making process. I showed the testing process and all of this stuff. And we finally hit this point where I'm showing final work. But I've been building up to this for 3 months, and I'm getting messages of people that are like, it has been so cool to see this process. Like most people on Instagram, they just post a finished product,
keep it hidden, and they just don't put the time into it because they're like, I'm busy. Absolutely. I'm doing this thing.
Yep. And that's I think that is a huge component of my success, is that these people that have just been watching me succeed and fail and test and trial and error over the last 3 months, they're like, holy shit, it actually worked the way he said it was. Because a lot of people that don't do this, they like see the 3D rendering on the computer and they're like, it just looks like a computer picture. But for them to, over 3 months' time, watch my stories and watch my posts and see it turn into a real thing is that kind of storytelling of like, this is not just, I don't just snap my fingers and this happens. It's like a really long process. And when you show it off, people get very interested.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, seeing the mold making and the silicone making and all the 3D printing and everything up to this point is like, wow, there's a lot that goes into it. But I didn't expect anything different from seeing what you've done up to this point with your silicone molds and your plaster molds and everything. Of like, he knows what the hell he's doing with the slip casting process. Like, would you expect that it would fall flat when he gets time to like you put the 4 pieces of the mold together and they fit perfectly? And I'm like, I wouldn't expect anything less. Like, he's very precise. Like, of course it's gonna work.
Well, that's good, because I'm glad that you think so, because there's a lot of times when I'm like, oh god, is this gonna work? Like with that 3D printing, I blew through so many failed prints and hundreds of dollars of resin, and like pouring the silicone. I poured $700 worth of silicone in a week and still had no idea if the molds were actually going to work. And then that first time when you take that plaster and you fit all those 5 pieces together and throw a rubber band around it, and you're like, oh my god, it works.
It works.
Just trying to share, trying to tell your story, and then the bigger thing of that is trying to share your own enthusiasm for your work. That's what I get a lot of comments on as well, is people see my face and see me talking in my stories, and I'm like, oh my god, it's actually working. And they're like, wow, you're like actually excited about this. And I'm like, how could I not be? This is fucking amazing.
I feel
So
like, and I feel like that's a limitation. Like a lot of people don't want to share that. I don't know if it's because they're self-conscious about like showing the things that they're not completely like, not like not enthusiastic, but they're not like the best at this
sure
thing,
it's
so
gonna
they
work.
feel
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
can't talk about it or they can't share it.
Yeah. Sharing failures is hard because when I share failures, I get hundreds of messages of people trying to tell me how to fix it. I'm like, I fucking know. I know where I need to go. I just have to. This is part of the process, and that's a. So it is. It's very exhausting to post failures because of the response you get. Um, but yeah, I know a lot of people are also not comfortable sharing that they're not just like they want to think of themselves as this master artist, and the master artist never fails because the master artist is the master artist. But I think that in this day and age, people are more than comfortable seeing the realness of the entire thing and seeing the happiness and the sadness and all of that stuff that goes along with it,
Yeah.
and it just endears you to them more, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, I think inherently, at least what I appreciate watching is like I want to see people like be real and be authentic. Like I don't want to feel
Yeah.
like I'm being bullshitted or
Yeah.
like you just show the end product and be like, man, I'm such a badass. Like,
Yeah.
or
Those are the
yeah,
accounts that are just so boring. It's like, yeah, your work's amazing, but it's just like studio gallery picture after studio gallery picture, and it doesn't feel human.
yeah. Even if and even if it's just like I'm just gonna record this I do this randomly all the time. Like I'm not gonna re-record a story unless for some reason
Hmm.
Instagram craps out and it doesn't save it for some reason. But I'm
Yeah.
like just share exactly what's going on. Um,
Yep.
so with the reset you kind of did, what was the driving force behind that decision being made?
I was bored.
You were bored.
I was bored of my work, and I started moving in this direction of this kind of quadrant based I want to say pedagogy, but I don't know if that's the right word. Um, I did a kind of test of it at the end of last year, and it worked. And it worked in a way that I was really happy with. And I wanted to get away from being the guy that does the twisted mugs and like
Mm-hmm.
doing drip glazes and twisted mugs. I've done that for 5 years, and it makes me feel really weird to like start falling into a something like that. So I wanted to start over, and I wanted to start over within this new way of working that has a lot of experimental potential. So I have this system now that are these quadrant based molds or 5-part molds, 4 sides, and a plug at the bottom. And thus far, I have applied surface textures with 3D modeling programs to them, but I have some of the plaster molds that I'm going to send to some friends that do more organic carved work, and they're actually going to carve into the plaster molds and then send them back to me, and I'll slip cast those. So like this opens up exactly what I love, which is high levels of variation and the ability to experiment very quickly. So that's actually been the fun in the last couple of weeks is I have taken almost every glaze combination, glaze application technique that I have ever done and put it on these new forms. And next weekend I have about 400 pieces going up, and it's way more pieces than I thought it was going to be. But I kind of just couldn't stop testing shit because
Right.
that's what I love to do. It's just like, how will the glaze behave on this surface? And then I test it with one glaze and be like, well, this glaze is kind of the same, but it runs a little more. Let's see where it goes and what
Right.
happens. And so that's just trying to find ways to monetize my experiments and my play in the studio
Because your
is
mugs are
the
your
whole
test
thing.
tiles, so
Exactly. That's the Hammerly ceramic secret is that I sell test tiles.
because your
So
because your glaze movement and everything is completely different. If it was the textured stuff, like generally I was trying to think. Were the geometric things always wider at the top than they were at the bottom? So it was always going to be moving inward as it went down. These.
I mean, some of the designs from last year were a little more tapered on the top, but they didn't have the bellies that these new ones have.
Yeah, because the glaze movement's going to be completely different. So you have to shift what looks good and what doesn't. Plus, it's is this glaze going to be too overwhelming with this overwhelming texture?
Exactly, and that is another great point. Is I've never had smooth mugs, and some of the glazes that I use don't make sense on a twisted surface. It looks like an afterthought. And in my mind, that drives me crazy. And some, like the Petri dish and the snow leopard in particular, they don't make sense on a texture. They're busy enough and they're complex enough that a smooth surface is what they kind of, in my mind, is what they demand. So I finally have smooth mugs, and I got a lot of shit for that from certain followers that were like, why
like you did all this process for a smooth
5-part
mug?
mold? Yeah. And that's something Kenny. If Kenny listens to this, he'll laugh because he talks shit to me in jest about it all the time. I'll put one of the smooth mugs in my story, and he's like, "Why do you have a 7-part mold for a smooth mug? What the hell is wrong with you?" It's like that's what I got from a lot of followers, and it was like, have some imagination, please.
It's like I'll just wait for
I'll get there.
Like we'll get there.
This is I have a whole plan, and it's working out.
Yeah, I mean, I got the taste of the quadrant molds from like the Kelly Justice side of things, where I saw how she makes her stuff, and I'm like, I get it. Like when he's talking quadrant things, I'm like, okay, you piece together these completely different textures, and you can get a totally unique mug, and you have no idea what it's gonna.
And I mean, that's part of that is driven by my need to experiment, but part of that is driven by the way that I market. Instagram demands new and different and variety, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of the big accounts do really well. Sean and Valeria, Forest Ceramic Company, endless variation, endless differentiation between their pieces, and like it lends itself to this platform where you post regularly, but you need to show new and unique stuff. Callahan, up in Fort Collins, north of me, it's the same thing. His mug bodies stay the same, but the decoration has endless possibilities. And man, that guy, he has not even scratched the surface of what he's going to do in his career. So I mean, it's what I enjoy doing, and it makes marketing easier. So
yeah, I feel like the thread between all of you all is the slip casting. I don't know where to go from that, but I just see the thread of like slip casting, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday when Mecca and I chatted about slip casting. But we're so like pro slip cast that we're like, oh my gosh, this process can be super simple, where you just like Sean and Valeri's molds are probably very simple. But the variation you can get with how you do the slip in them is nuts.
The complexity that they add with their different, they have so many different application techniques for the slip now that it's unreal. So yeah, within the boundaries of those forms that they have unlimited potential. And that's a little harder to do when you're spending all your time wheel throwing.
Right.
Not to say that slip casting is a magic bullet. I get a lot of people that ask me about that, or a lot of people that are like, I want to start slip casting so I can make stuff faster. And I'm like, honestly, if you're making the molds yourself, it's not that much faster.
Yeah. And then like space wise, how much space does it take up? How much liquid slip do you have to keep? Like,
I mean, there's a reason that I got out of my basement.
Yeah, seeing those slip tables and the pumps and the
we have
drums and
lots of equipment, but it's I mean one of my main goals is that I'm not making, with the smooth ones, like I just said, like obviously those could be thrown on the wheel, but the other textured forms, I always try to make designs that aren't feasible on the wheel. Like I want to utilize the technology that I'm using and the techniques that I'm using for more than just um, forms that could be made on the wheel.
Right.
Personally.
Yeah. Okay, so let's I wanted to ask about your like sharing on social media these days of like what influences, what are the different variables that influence what you decide to share, not share, and has it changed over time?
Oh man. So it's interesting. So when I first started and I had a full-time job, and I'm sure this is exactly how you feel, but I pardon me. I never had enough content back in the day. Before I was doing this full time, it was a serious problem, and I really had to plan like, okay, Saturday and Sunday are my pottery days. How do I generate enough content for the rest of the week? And now I have the opposite problem where I have to plan my stories so that they're short enough and they don't get just disgustingly long. That I'm like, wow, someone gets to my story and they're like, wow, he did 30 slides today. Next.
It's Pac-Man Day. Walk, walk,
Yeah,
walk, walk,
Jesus.
walk.
So I try to plan them out in my head, but honestly, these days it's like just show the most interesting stuff because I
Yeah.
mean, as you know, pottery isn't always interesting.
Yeah. Or the smallest things that you share that you don't think are interesting somehow pop.
Yeah. And that's tough. I didn't share slip casting videos for the longest time, and then my best video ever oh no, that's a glazing video. My third best video ever is a video of slip casting Levi the Space Guy, and it got up to a couple million views, and it's like, holy shit, people actually think this is interesting.
Yeah.
But if you shoot it in the right way, and like, I mean, shit, Florian, his videos of his bloopers are the biggest thing he's ever done by far, and it is so mind-blowing to me. I never would have guessed that these montages of his failure would just hit millions and millions and millions of views. On YouTube, he got featured on YouTube's trending list a couple times because of his blooper videos, I'm pretty sure. And it's like, man,
they got to see something different that they don't
interesting
they don't expect from Florian.
Exactly.
You expect perfection.
Yep. And that's the world we live in, is people just want to be entertained, and watching someone who is so badass fail massively for 30 seconds straight is fucking entertaining as shit.
You're like, this guy is human after all. What's going on?
I mean, when I see how clean his studio is, I question if he's actually human, but
I just can't believe he does it all himself. Like, I'm just like,
I know.
30 hours and how, like, oh my gosh, it's nuts.
I've tried YouTube, and it's so overwhelmingly time consuming that I don't know how he gets any work made.
Yeah. I think you were talking about it in the past. We've just been like, dipping your toe in there. It's like, how much time is that going to take away from other things? And like, the sky's the limit there, but like the time investment.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's tough to decide where to spend your time.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you got employees, you got the business is like,
oh yeah,
you got,
and now having a
1-year-old
at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So always trying to reduce number of hours in the studio while still keeping it profitable and still maintaining regular marketing and everything on Instagram is super interesting.
Yeah. As you were like growing more, and you said it's pretty steady, but do you change a little bit of what you're posting based on? I consider like IG rewarding you, but like you see the things that pop more. So like that has to have an influence on what you're deciding to post, right?
As far as like what content I decide to do for videos, it definitely influences it. Like Instagram has definitely changed over time, and it's not just in the way that a lot of people get mad about. It's like the algorithm has changed. It's that the people have changed. It is so hard these days to show people on Instagram something that they haven't seen before, because I've been doing this social media thing for a while. Even if someone follows 10 or 20 pottery accounts. They've seen people throw. They've seen people apply underglaze. They've seen people carve. It's it's getting harder and harder to really
Yeah, the audience is a
show
little
something
spoiled,
new.
right? Because they've had
Oh
all
yeah.
this great content for years. So it's
And
like,
I will give a caveat to that I think that it's still just as easy as ever to find an audience on Instagram. I think contrary to what a lot of people believe, they believe that people like me, who have a big account, get a lot more help, so to speak, from Instagram. But I really think that Instagram tries its hardest to get fresh, new blood into the system because, like I said, it's all about capturing human attention. And
yeah,
YouTube had this problem 3 or 4 years ago where all the biggest accounts got all the views and people were getting bored because every time they got on YouTube, they saw the same shit. And then YouTube changed the way that they do things, and all the big boys got real upset because like half of their revenue evaporated overnight. But it was better for the ecosystem because it brought more fresh new stuff. So there are people growing very quickly out there. I think Callahan is one of my favorite examples. Callahan has grown almost faster than anyone I've ever seen, and he doesn't do videos. His work is so fucking Instagrammable and so aesthetically pleasing that he has blown up faster than almost anyone I've ever seen, and it's just with pictures. And the same with Tatiana from Female Alchemy. She has rocketed, and she's only been on the scene for like a year. And it's because their content is great. Their work is aesthetically pleasing. Their work is good. They have a good concept. Tatiana makes great videos, but both of their content is top notch. You go and you scroll through their feeds, and it's well lit. It's good pictures, and I think that's it's way easy to find examples of people that aren't making it and aren't finding success. But the fact that there are some people out there that are finding success far faster than ever before is a testament to it's still possible.
yeah. I think it's a matter of like kind of looking at yourself and looking what you're posting and like judging it with a objective eye,
Yep.
not being so like attached to it
And I
necessarily,
mean,
or disconnecting the thing you're producing with the content that you're posting.
yeah. And then I could definitely see people criticizing this by like, yeah, their work is just Instagrammable, and that's true. But I mean, I know a lot of people in the art world that are like, oh, people just need to expand their art critic. I don't even know what are the words I'm looking for.
I mean, it sounds like you're
Like,
ultimately saying like blaming on the audience. They need to be smarter, or they need to have a
yeah,
finer eye
like if they
for what they
exactly
enjoy.
if they had a finer eye, my work would do better on Instagram. You're like, but that's you trying to live in the world you want to live in, not in the one that actually exists. So yes, there are going to be people that have work that works better on this platform, and they're going to do better. And there's nothing you can do about that. It is what my brother always says is it's as close to a true meritocracy as we have. People are voting with their likes, follows, shares, saves, comments, all of that. It's all votes going into the system. And
How they slice and dice all that data. Like, would you want to be on the other end of slicing and dicing that data and trying to serve it in the best way possible?
there's a reason why their practices are so opaque. It's because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're trying to figure this shit out. Like, I saw it explained, I think Veritasium on YouTube shared it once, and he was like, the creators are chasing the algorithm to try to pick that lock and beat it, find ways to beat the algorithm, while the people working for the company are trying to make the algorithm more follow more closely to what humans actually want. So over the years, we have found Instagram, YouTube, any of these companies have found flaws in the system. Like that's why there have been times in the past where super crazy clickbaity bullshit got bigger than anything else on YouTube because of the way the algorithm worked. So they had to say, okay, well, people are hacking this human behavior with bullshit and not not like actual entertaining content. They're just they're just hooking people in the first few seconds with something completely absurd. Even if by the end of the video, the users are like, wow, that was dumb. I can't believe I just watched that. Because of the way the algorithm worked, YouTube's system rewarded that.
Because
And
the time on video
Exactly.
and like number of people that exited after a certain period, or
So, like you said, I would not want to be on the other side of this, because you're basically trying to build a system that rewards genuine human behavior, but does not allow for people to pick the lock and like hack the system. You know,
right.
that's a weird way to word it, but like I hope people understand what I mean. Is like, yeah, clickbait exists for a reason, because it gets people's attention for just long enough that
And there's so much content out there. It sounds like you kind of have to play that. That's kind of playing the game a little bit, but
yeah, like YouTube thumbnails are designed the way that they are on the popular videos for a reason. They have to pull you in somehow. So yeah, so on the other end of this, like artists and other people can complain about how terrible the algorithm is and how it favors this and how it hates that and blah 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 blah. But there are very highly paid people on the other end of this that are their entire job is trying to make the algorithm reward genuine human engagement.
And at the end of the day, they're being paid to like help the company make more money for their stockholders and
yep, exactly.
To keep
and at the end of the day, if you had a better system, you would be wealthy beyond your fucking imagining. And that's the thing, is like, I think even Veritasium talks about it in that video where he's like, if there was a better way to do this, people would be doing it. But the algorithm, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, any of these platforms, like what they're using is way better than any alternative that has ever been devised in history.
I actually found, I don't know how I stumbled upon it, but I stumbled upon a video on, I think it was an IGTV video from Adam Mosseri, which is the IG CEO, that basically talks about how the algorithm works. And it's very high level. It's back from June of 2021. And he tries to explain all the factors that go into servicing posts to somebody that can't, like, it's kind of tough to follow if you can't abstract what he's saying, because there's so many variables.
Tons of people took one little thread from what he said and ran with it. When he talked about how they're going to, how reels are, I'm trying to think of the exact words he used, but he was like, reels are going to become more important. And I remember just being flooded with people that are like, Instagram isn't about pictures anymore. It's going to be all about video. And I'm sitting here like, it's fucking always been about video. From the first day that they allowed people to put videos on Instagram, videos have been king this entire time. It doesn't, like, that's why I found success as soon as I switched to videos, is because videos hold people's attention for more time than pictures by 1,000-fold. That's why TikTok is so huge right now, and why Instagram is doing everything in their power to latch on to some of that, is because it's not that Instagram doesn't like pictures, it's that videos work 1,000 times better.
Right. People
it's not like
enjoy
Instagram went behind the scenes and they said, we're going to flip this switch and now pictures are shit. I mean, I had a picture a couple weeks ago that got up to 10,000 likes, which is astronomical for me. And it's like, it's harder to get people interested about a picture. And videos are just better at doing the job.
I mean, it's just a stream of images that you can consume in seconds. It's like, I mean, how could that not like draw people's attention more than just seeing a photo?
People sat down and thought about their own behavior, like especially these people that are super up in arms. Like, I guarantee that if they had the ability to see their own usage data, it would far favor videos. The people that are the most mad about pictures not working, as well anymore. They would have the same kind of data. Like, you stop on videos way more than you stop on pictures. It's like Instagram has this information. They're not saying we hate artists, we hate pictures. Like, there's a bunch of memes of like showing artists dancing in front of the camera just to get some attention. And it's like, you don't have to do that. Like, find a creative way to film your process, especially with painters. I've never understood this. Painters are so pissed off. They're like, I paint pictures, not video. And it's like, so film yourself painting. Are you out of your fucking mind? Like,
Yeah.
time lapses of paintings get huge sometimes if you film them correctly.
Time lapses.
I don't understand the anger. Like, just this isn't complicated.
Yeah, I mean, you're tied to the 2D surface, or maybe you're not because you got some texture, but there's parts of your painting process that you could share, I'm sure, that, like, there's not a limited number of options of ways you can get creative.
Some of the parts of my work that I consider to be the most unbelievably boring, mundane, monotonous, as soon as I filmed them, they did amazingly well, and it never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah.
Ugh,
And I think high level of
an interesting topic.
And I think high level, I mean, I was looking at some IG stats. These are from Hootsuite. They got some, they update their Instagram stats every year, but so I've been checking this every now and then, but just high level, I'm just going to spit off some numbers here. 1.2 billion people use IG every month. 500 million use stories daily. That's from 2019. The 60% of the IG audience is 18 to 34-year-olds. So think of like that audience of who is on there, majority. What are they interested in? What are they used to? I'm sure TikTok is probably a similar age group, maybe a little skews a little younger, maybe.
Yeah.
But like, think of what keeps their attention. You can imagine that people in that age group need things quick.
There's a significant portion of people sitting in bed at night, high out of their mind, just scrolling through reels for hours.
And then a couple of them were one other thing that stuck out to me was like the adult users are in the app are nearly on there for 30 minutes per day. So it makes sense that if you're looking at videos, you're on a video longer, which takes up a bigger chunk of that 30 minutes in your day. So you're naturally going to see fewer accounts in that 30 minutes that you're on the app and on average. So it makes sense that fewer people are going to get your attention and get your engagement. So I think that just makes sense.
I hate to think about art as a competitive thing, but on Instagram, we are competing for human attention. Albeit, I think that the fact that it's 1.2 billion people, I'm pretty sure there's enough to go around, especially for something as niche as pottery.
And we have a process that is like, there's so many things you can show, and a lot of people don't know about it. That like there's so many interesting creative parts that you can share, and people can do. The sky's the limit for what you can create with pottery. Whether you slip cast, you throw, you hand build, you polymer clay, you do jewelry, you do all different things. There's so many options, right?
Yeah, and it's like it comes down to like I said, the silliest things in my studio that I would never think are entertaining because I've done them so much do the best. Like watching Renee Lepresti peel a stencil off of underglaze and expose this like incredibly detailed surface on the feet of her mugs. I'll never get sick of that. I'll watch those videos for the rest of my life. And it's just like, to her, she does that every day. She puts a stencil on, she puts underglaze on it, and then she peels it off. And to her, it's probably the most mundane thing ever. But to me, who is a potter and does this stuff every day, I'm like, oh, that is just the satisfaction level of peeling that stencil off. It's just wonderful.
I like watching people peel the liquid latex off. Like Kip.
Oh, yeah.
I want to say it's Kip. I can't remember her last name. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
She does kind of like gradients and underglaze, and she peels off, and it's like a graphical. Whew, that's satisfying.
I think that I don't care what you do in ceramics. There is some part of your process that if you filmed it, it would be it would do amazingly well. If you filmed it right, it was well lit, the cuts were good, the timing was right, and that takes practice. And I know a lot of people try for a while, don't find any success and get frustrated, and that's hard. But the content game isn't easy.
Yeah,
That's for damn
it depends
sure.
on how you want your audience to grow. And you don't have to have an Instagram audience to sell your stuff. You could
Yep.
go other routes, but if you want that, you have to
Gotta
go
play the
through
game.
the practice of understanding what works, what doesn't work, what's interesting about your process that people engage with, what they don't. Whether stories are good for you. Maybe you have a great personality and you just shine through people understanding more about you. And like that's why people follow you more so than like loving your pieces. Maybe they just love
Yep.
you and your personality.
You got to figure out what works for you. Damn, I don't know if I'm gonna say her last name right, but Nicole Dacey. She makes reels that are super entertaining, and it's not even about her work most of the time. It's tropes for pottery and
Right.
kind of comedy videos with herself as the star, and they're entertaining as hell, and she's blown up because of it. And it's like just find something that works for you.
And it's
There's
fun.
a million ways to do this.
You don't have to do something cringe that you don't like doing just for the sake of getting the attention. Like the painters feeling like they have to dance. Like you don't have to do that.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. Just get creative with how you show your process. Because man, so many people out there, whether they don't have time to do art themselves or like I get messages from people all the time that are like, I took pottery in high school and I don't have time or money to do it anymore, but watching your videos makes me so happy. I'm like, that's amazing. That is so cool to hear. So like, it doesn't matter what you do. If you are constantly trying to get better, you have some goals and you document yourself well, there is a sliver of that 1.2 billion people on Instagram that are going to be interested in what you do. There's just yeah. I don't know.
Definitely.
I've
seen like
to deal with the naysayers.
as the reels have like become more front and center or more prioritized, I've seen some longevity. Like reels have some longevity that posts did not have back in the day. Like I feel like posts did not last like more than a week or so. Like I'm seeing reels that can have some multiple week longevity.
Oh yeah. And then randomly 2.5 weeks later, it gets another 100,000 views, and you're like, "What the hell? Where did that come from?" And who knows? It's
it's like you don't go to it, and I'm like, how do we get all these? I was like the one with me like throwing in marbles on my shoulder and stuff. Like that's almost at like 2,000 likes, and I'm like, all right, sweet.
Yeah,
like
and
2.5 weeks
honestly,
ago, it's like that's cool.
Yeah. And in a lot of those cases, I get messages from people and they're like, "Oh my God, this is my best video ever." And then they go out and they recreate that same video 4 times and it doesn't do well. And they're like, "Well, the algorithm hates me." And I'm like, God, you made the same fucking video 5 times in a row. Like, of course people are bored. Do you know people? They get bored. Like it's just the people that I know that have the most success with it. And so the Instagram pays out for reels now.
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because you had that little try. Was it an experiment? Was it a trial? Like how did that come about?
Okay, so last November I got my first invite to the Reels bonus program, and it's a month-long program. And the reels that you post during that time period, it racks up views. And basically how it works is it pays you, depending on the size of your bonus
reach?
Maximum that they give you. Yeah. I don't know how they calculate it. It has something to do with reach. I'm actually hopefully getting some info about that soon from some friends of mine that had, like, Kenny had a lot of success. He hit his maximum. I've never even gotten close because mine is so high. So I'm so interested to see if Kenny's maximum jumps up. That's all I was trying to say.
Wow.
So I've done it for 4 months now. the first month I went really, really hard at it, and I got lucky. And
So it's
I
not
say
a
lucky
one-time
because
invite for a month. It's like trial,
it
see how
seems
it
to
goes,
be,
and
but
then they
this
might
is another
reinvite.
thing that they are so opaque about how they're doing it because they're just testing. They have no idea what the fuck they're doing. They're just trying to keep up with TikTok in some way because TikTok pays its creators. So the way that it works is Instagram has set aside a certain amount of money per month that it's going to pay out. Based on how many views you get a slice of that pie percentage wise. So the more people that are in the system or the more views that they get in the month, it's not a static like $1 per 1,000 views. It doesn't work that way. It's dynamic based on a lot of things, and it's completely opaque. So you just kind of like you have a little bar in
You'd have
in the
to compare
professional
other
dashboard.
people's and like
Yeah.
see how their stuff is trending. And
So the first month I was like, let's see how hard I can go with this. And I posted a lot of reels and I ended up making about $4,000. So it actually paid for my MacBook Pro that I'm sitting on right now, which was really cool. And then ever since then, I've gone back to I'll make a video when it's convenient for me. And I've made $500 about per month since then. So the first month went really crazy. Made $4,000, and then every month after that, it's been about 500.
do you get like residuals after that month of
No,
when you
and that's
created
the
reels?
messed up thing. So
Oh, man.
I have a bunch of friends that have bigger accounts, and playing this game is really frustrating because even that first month, I posted a really good reel in the last 2 days, and it cut off. I had
man.
probably 2 million views after the cutoff on that reel, and that's like $1,600. So now me and some other people are playing this game where
You have to,
we're
like,
not
front load your
posting in the
best
last
reels.
like 10,
It's
yeah,
like,
you
but
front
you don't
load all
know.
your reels and then you just don't post reels for the last 10 days. And I'm really curious why they did this. I'm sure it's just a complexity thing. But yeah, so a lot of my friends and myself included, like when it gets to the last 10 to 7 days, I just don't post reels anymore. And I have a friend who she has almost 400,000 followers, and she's playing the content game really hard. She doesn't even post pictures anymore. She stopped posting pictures months ago, and she posts a reel every single day, and she's at about $15,000 this month for reels. And
Holy shit.
it's insane. She has 5 or 6 videos.
I have a feeling
that are
I know
over
who that is. Is it Anna Pinart? No, not confirmtional.
Yep,
'Cause I
it
follow
is.
that person. She's got really
And
sweet, awesome stuff.
yeah, and she definitely has a finger on the pulse of what people find interesting in a way that
Yeah.
not very many people do. And say what you will about what she makes, but she's playing the content game, and she's at home with her kids that she's homeschooling, and she crushes. It's ridiculous. So
And
I think she's up 100,000 followers in the last like 2 months because of it.
And I feel like the reels are like another thing that's cool is I feel like you don't have to go back and forth as much in comments with them. I feel like, but
Yeah.
I mean, you get an influx of comments
Especially when they
all the time
grow.
anyways, but
Yeah.
if it's engaging, like they kind of get the gist and they're here for the entertainment. They're not necessarily there to
My
give you
my guess
feedback.
would be that for the vast majority of people that are watching Reels, because when you go to that Reels tab, you can just mindlessly scroll forever.
Mhm.
I would guess that vast majority of people that are watching the full reel are not even looking at the caption, are not even looking at the comments, unless it's like a controversial thing and they want to see what other people are saying or
Mhm.
stuff like that. So yeah, it's an interesting game to play.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was.
And like I want to point out real quick that like all this stuff that we're talking about, it has nothing to do with art. This is all content.
This
Like,
is
we're
all
we're
marketing
talking
and
about
using Instagram.
marketing and content, and I just wish more people could really disconnect those two things in their head. They're two different things. They're two different skill sets, and yeah, it's just when people get sad about their own art because their Instagram isn't growing, that's so messed up because the content and the art are two very different things.
Yeah. You
I
have to have
can't
that
stress that enough.
separation. And just like, you got to have the mindset to like be self-aware that, you know, you're in a different space when you're producing work for Instagram or producing content for Instagram. You're like a different entity there. And
Yeah.
you're your own craft person. It's like, I was trying to come up with like a Venn diagram kind of thing where it's like people that are really good at craft, people who are really good at marketing, and then people who are really just entertaining and interesting. Like, I feel like there's some Venn diagram of where that mashes together of like.
And I really believe that everyone has enough in each different category. And if they can just pull it together in a creative way, they can find success on social media. But a lot of people aren't willing to use, a lot of people don't want to show their face. A lot of people don't want to share their process. A lot of people don't want to talk to other humans. Like, they don't want to actually engage in the social part of social media. And like, there's all these things that people just don't want to do. And if they did and practiced at it a little bit, they could find a lot of success. Like we talked about at the very beginning, I didn't have skills when I started this. I had never done marketing in my life. I had never done photography in my life. I was just a dude working a full-time job that started doing pottery and was like, hey, maybe if I take some pictures, other people might be interested in this.
Sweet. All right, let's wrap up. Appreciate your time.
Cool.
Thanks
I
so
don't know
much.
if you can hear him, but the baby's in the background.
I hear. Yeah. So thanks so much. And you all can check out his chat back in Ensika, build brand with Instagram. I'm going to put that in the description. People sometimes read that. But so if you want to hear some Instagram chat or go back to episode 50, listen to that. Appreciate your time, Curt, as always.
Yeah, I hope that some people got some stuff out of this. I really like come and
I think you got to talk about the
what I
business
do.
side of it. You got to talk about the marketing, the business. You got to play the social media game. People always ask questions about that, and it's
and feel free to reach out to me if you have some questions. Just I think the keys that I would say is like follow people that do this better than you. Look at what they do, try to analyze it, try to emulate it, and just practice and get better, because marketing and content are a skill that needs to be honed, and you got to start somewhere.
Great. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks.
Yo, higgity, yo. It's Becca here. Hey, just so you know, thank you for listening. And also, we have... What do we have again? A Patreon. We have a Patreon that you should go, and if you want to donate to, you could donate to it. If you don't, that's cool too. But just Google Wheel Talk Podcast Patreon. Don't do the other one, because there is a Wheel Talk on Patreon, but it's not us. So make sure you get the right one. It's in the show notes. And also, leave us a review, because they're fun to read. Okay, bye!